Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
With all apologies to chess boxing, which I've never competed in, and I'm sure is way harder, I do think of that though. You know, there's a lot of effort, and then there's, okay, now you got to fake and put yourself in the map or extract. And then there's a lot of effort again, and we're choosing our direction at each time.
Well, you know, for me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
I need you, brother. Please, Sensei, please.
Courage, Bob. Courage.
That's it. Courage. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
Say the word, Chef.
Whatever.
8 kids, 4 teams, 1 shot at a junior world championship. The USARA youth national teams are heading to Canada to represent the United States at the Junior Adventure Racing World Championships. And they need our help, the community's help getting there. These are young athletes doing what we did when we started, balancing school and training, learning to navigate, learning to suffer a little, learning what a real team actually means. And now they get to do it on an international stage against the best junior racers in the world. That's right, folks. We are sending our best to Canada, and we need your help because the costs are real. Registration, food, travel, accommodations. For young athletes and their families, those costs add up fast. The adventure racing community helped to build these racers. We built these kids, and we want to help them get to the start line. The link to support them is in the show notes. Whatever you could do makes a difference. Help to send our racers to Canada, and best of luck to everybody. The Adventure Racing Kids Summer Camp runs out of the Macedon Resort in Virginia this coming summer, 2026. Ages 9 to 16 years old, 1 week. Mountain biking, hiking, whitewater rafting on the Shenandoah, team challenges, campfires, and actual adventure racing concepts baked into each and every day. This is not a babysitting week with a ropes course. Nope. Grit Adventures. We know Grit. They do a great job. They run this program with intention, building resilience, teaching kids how to suffer a little bit and come out on the other side, and giving them teammates they'll remember. Hand a child a compass, let them figure it out, watch what happens. That's the whole idea for a whole week. Water park access, all meals included, tent camping on the property. The link is in the show notes, and if your child is ready, the Adventure Racing Kids Summer Camp would love to have them. Dark Zone listeners could use code DARKZONE when they register for a $100 discount. Welcome to the Dark Zone. It's your host, Brian Gatens. Bit of an intro here today because this is an interesting episode. It was recorded over a year ago. We saved it for a while. 1 Degree Racing did a great job. They had just done the Cerberus race presented by Mark Lattanzi. And we held it, and now we're releasing it. But you have to go back in time to enjoy it. It is a great episode, very evergreen content, and the fellows had a great time. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of The Dark Zone. As listeners know, we get our guests from a variety of sources. We see a race result and it pops out at us. We reach out to somebody, or we see a press release, or someone does something huge, someone does something small. We want to talk to them. One of our favorite ways of getting guests is when a race director says, hey, listen, you got to talk to this team. This team had a great experience at a race, and I think they'd be a good guest on the Dark Zone. And so Mark Lattanzi, following his 3-day Cerberus race, reached out and recommended 1 Degree Racing, that they'd be an interesting team to talk to, that they had a really great experience at Cerberus, great vibe, a lot of fun. So we have Eddie, David, and JB on the show today from, like I said, 1 Degree Racing. They're zooming in from all around the country, and we are grateful for their effort. Eddie, welcome to the Dark Zone. Talk to us about 1 Degree Racing and your experience at Cerberus.
We are 1 Degree Racing and signed up for Cerberus with the plan of having kind of a few additional team members be able to join, but we ended up racing as a 3-person all-male team, and this was our first expedition style race, and we were kind of just there for the experience, see how things went. And I will say it was at least my first time being able to see maps before the morning of the race, the day of the race. And so that was a new experience, and it was great to be able to study a little bit and also feel overwhelmed kind of even that night before of saying, okay, we gotta be able to be prepared for day one, knowing, we're kind of semi-planning for day 2 and day 3 because there were parts that were going to carry over from day to day. Overall, just talking about our experience, wonderful area. Camp Powhatan was a great spot to set up everything for kind of preludes, setting that up for the night before, and then being able to have that be more or less base camp for the rest of the days. Amazing kind of setup for Mike and Mark Lattanzi being able to set that up for us. I would say our race experience was a little bit different as a 3-person team than some 2- and 4-person teams. To start out, we had a little bit of challenge in the first paddle. A lot of very shallow water. That was, our start to kind of see how things went. And then after that, I think that we were mostly positive and had a good experience during the race because we just really enjoy hanging out with each other. It was great to be able to get ice cream on the first day. Second day, we got to do this really cool string course, which we see a lot of the pictures from Cerberus. And then the last day, just being able to hang out and have each other, like the great O course out there at Camp Atari. And making it back from there was its own challenge. But we ended up, finishing right around the area that we were aiming for, and I think had even more fun than we expected. I'm happy to talk more about the race, but it really felt like, us being able to hang out with each other for 36 hours of racing, and even more than that time outside of the racing, just around each other, was a special experience.
Yeah, and that was the vibe that Mark sort of gave off, the idea that the three of you clearly had the secret sauce when it came to being teammates and having a good time and enjoying yourself during the race. JB, let me come over to you for this question here. This composition of the team, the three of you racing together, this was the first time that you've done this expedition feel, right? 3 days in a row of racing. Have the three of you raced multiple times together in this iteration?
We have. We have raced, the three of us, but we've always had a fourth. Eddie's brother, Danny, has been the fourth. We've done a handful of races together, some 12 hours. And then we did a cheekily formatted 26.2 hour, the Pisco race in Western North Carolina. And that's probably over the course of 2 years or so, with a lot of chatter and kind of consistent group texts in between. And right. So I think we knew this was more than 3 12-hour races, so to speak, just because it was so compact, but we also knew it was less than 3 days. And so just trying to strike that balance, I think it's a testament to your point, Brian, of us having raced before and kind of leading up to this with a few years of experience on some shorter tracks.
Right. And in a moment, I'm going to come to all three of you and talk about how many years you've been adventure racing. So when you begin to do the math in your head, before I give that question, David, let me come over to you. Leveling up, going with an event of this size, was this your first time personally going for a race this big, or have you done other longer races?
Longest race to date, we did nationals last year. So that was our first greater than 24-hour race. We've done a number of 24-hour races, and I think that's the distance that our group has done the most. And we have kind of, one degree racing. Our team name is because a lot of us are separated by 1 degree. I know JB from when he was a law student at Michigan, and I was an undergrad at Michigan. JB knows Eddie because they both went to Carolina. Eddie's brother is a part of this. There's a lot of people who are part of our team because we call it 1 degree racing.
All right, that's a pretty good. That's a very thoughtful way to name your team, by the way. Better than I got to give you guys credit for that one. You really thought
we're usually at least 1 degree off on the.
That's right.
I actually thought the idea of the 1 degree was a navigation reference. They always say if a spaceship is going to Mars and it's 1 degree off, it's 12,000 miles off by the end of the first week. That's what I thought the 1 degree was. But the fact that the three of you and the fourth, obviously, the person who clearly said there's a level of connection among the group that it translates into the race experience. And obviously that benefits that.
That's right. And we've got, we affectionately call it a stable of 7 or 8 guys that all of us are close and have become close through racing. So yeah, to answer your question, Nationals is the biggest race that we had attempted. Pisgah before that. Yeah, this is our first multi-day race, and I think we really saw it as an opportunity to learn about what the expedition format was going to be like. And I think we all got that. Like the idea of like, listen, we get the maps, we show up, we race, we get done. The mental calibration for like, we're going to get done and we're going to immediately start preparing to race again. Yeah. From a fitness standpoint, from a gear standpoint, from a navigation standpoint, even as Eddie said, the O course at Cerberus, and for folks who didn't race at Cerberus, Mark and Mike did an interesting thing where they had a single O course spread across 2 days, and you could get a certain number of points on day one and a certain number of points on day two. From a planning standpoint, we'd never entered a race where we're like, listen, we're going to be in this spot twice over 2 days, and we have to prepare to be efficient, where our effort's going to be, when we're going to be able to give our best. So yeah, I think we went into this wanting to learn about what an expedition race was going to be like, to see if that's something that our team is interested and capable of doing in the future.
And living up to that. Eddie, how many years are you in adventure racing?
It's been 2 years, barely 2 years. So yeah,
okay.
David roped me into it. We were, watching basketball together, and he asked my friend if he would be interested in adventure racing. And my friend said, I'm not, but this other guy is about to show up and you need to ask him the same question. And then he asked me.
Limb. Yeah. And I'm a no, but this other guy's going to be a yes.
Yeah, of course. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So immediately I was like, yes, sign me up. Let's do this. Let's go for it. And so, yeah, I was kind of roped in. So 2 years for me.
So 2 years here. What other background did you have with endurance sports?
Yeah, I've tried to do some longer races, half full marathons, and then the trail ultras were really what led me more into the running part of the running discipline and trekking. And that is something that kind of led me into the interest of being outside, getting lost in the woods.
Gotcha. JB, how about you? How many years of adventure racing, and what was your background like with endurance sports?
I'd say 3 years. So in fact, that was just about the third anniversary, our Cerberus adventure. Again, roped in by Dave with the help of some peer pressure police, some good friends of ours, part of the stable that he referenced. And then on the sort of background, some sprint triathlons, maybe 1 or 2 longer distance triathlons, trying to play a whole lot of golf, walked 72 holes one day, try to walk 36 when I can. No, that's not exactly an endurance sport, but
you're still out there. You're not on your couch, right? So you give points to that.
Still a good walk spoiled. Yep, for sure.
And Dave, how about you?
This will be 4 years for me.
And what was your background like with endurance sports?
Yeah, I ran a marathon in like 2010, and that was terrible, and didn't really have any interest in doing that again. And then, yeah, like 2018, 2019, I started trail running a lot more, and was honestly just kind of like looking for the next thing to do. And don't really know how I found adventure. Like, I don't remember what the catalyzing action was, but this group of us, like, again, I didn't know Eddie at the time, but I had some other friends who had done some like specific outdoor expedition type things. I actually, like, one of the people who's on this team, James, he took a team to Patagonia, I think, for like their first adventure race, and they were going to do the Patagonia race. I don't think it was the most positive experience for them, but they like went and competed. And so, yeah, when I was like, listen, I know a little bit more about adventure racing. Who are the people who I'm going to give a call to? My friend James, another guy named Ryan, another guy named Dave. We were all over the country, kind of mapped out what training would look like. And so the inaugural race was Never Summer in 2021. And we just had an incredible experience. And I think like what I've tried to do is like people who are close to me, who we would enjoy the process of training and talking to each other through training and preparing for a race. I think the thing that when I did that first race was really unique and special. And I think the thing that's special about adventure racing is participating as a team is something else. Like there's not a lot of examples of it. And so I think a lot of us where we're like, we were interested in being athletic and we were interested in adventure and exploring, but just the opportunity to go and be in the woods with people that matter to you, pushing yourself to your perceived limits and past those, and doing it together was, I think, like the thing that for me was really special and has led me to convince other people that they should pursue this thing also. And so, you know, as Eddie said, like his brother wasn't there. His brother Denny is a member of the team, but his wife was about to give birth, and so he had to drop last minute. And then our friend Neil sadly couldn't make it. He had an injury, but yeah, I think that, like, let's go do something hard. Let's go do something in a place that's beautiful. Let's push ourselves, and let's like build what friendship looks like through these years of our life that are not, you know, college and the years afterwards.
JB, there's a subtext to Dave's point about the first race, Never Summer, and that is that they cleared it. And so we had it, and that doesn't happen often for our team. So it was an easy recruitment tool, like, I'd done stuff with Dave and the folks that he mentions who did the first time. Okay, I can get into shape. We can do this. And then the first one I did with Dave and James was Shenandoah, and we did not clear Shenandoah for a variety of reasons. So I guess the point of all that is to say it was a great lead in, and the foundation of friendship and hanging out was certainly number one. But we have grown a lot, and to the point of the title of your podcast, we've grown a lot overnight at those races too.
And so you hit on a lot of the common things we hear about adventure racing, right? The fact that people, they enjoy endurance sports, physical pursuits, but very often people, you know, when you trail run and you're in marathons, adventure racing kind of spoils those experiences because all of a sudden, like, you're running a course that they've given you, right? And so every marathon has become a training one for me, right? It's no longer, there's no challenge, relaxed marathoners. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the idea that it's a different dynamic when you're on the course. And then David, you kind of referenced the idea like of this, how you're bridging this gap between the experiences of your teenage years, your college years. And as you enter into that there's things that people want to share together, right? So you really, you touch a lot of those. You did say something, JB, a second ago, the idea that you've grown a lot. You've grown a lot. And I want to put a pin there, and I want to come back to that in a little bit, because I do want to get into the technical side of Cerberus itself, right? Because you had this great experience at the race, and then you also had this great attitude about racing. So let's go to the race itself. What did the team do to prepare itself for 3 consecutive days of racing? Right? Because it's one thing to go race for 12 hours and go home. It's one thing to race for 24, 30 hours and do it as a singular event. But to do it with rest in between, how did you modulate your first day activity? How did you prepare overnight? Did you think about it, or did you just throw caution to the wind and say, we'll figure it out? Anybody can pick that up.
I mean, I'll take one part of it, which is because this, like the three of us have done a number of 24-hour races before. From a fitness standpoint, we're not quite at the like show up and you know what to expect, but we're not super far from that. Like all of us have been like, listen, I've raced for 24 hours, I've raced for 30 hours. Like, we know what the physical training is going to look like. And I think we also knew that we would get to recover. And so I think our mindset from a racing standpoint, if we were going to go pretty hard on the first day, see how far that carried us, recover, redo our gear, wake up the next day and kind of see how hard we could push, and felt like pretty confident about that. But I think the big thing that we wanted to figure out was like, can we plan a successful race from a checkpoint density standpoint? Can we make sure that our gear holds up? So I think that's the stuff that we spend a lot of time. We do weekly calls before a race, hashing that stuff out, talking through uncertainty. And Eddie was navigating the vast majority of this race. And so I think, you did a ton to, I think, map out what us being successful, not in one day, but over 3 days was going to look like.
And so, Eddie, to that point, walk us through the maps, because I had Mark on one of the AR school interviews, and he talked about the maps. Like, you got all the maps at first, but they were used in different days. Like, what was the map strategy like? How did you employ that?
All right, yeah, we'll get into it. So, first day, what included a paddling leg, going to biking, and then finishing off trekking. So, pretty straightforward, like what you could expect from a 12-hour race. The overall, strategy was thrown off that were kind of added a little bit of a twist based on what David had mentioned about the fact that O course at the end of the first day was one map that included 24 points, and then that would be used across both days. We immediately were kind of thinking, okay, well, our plan, we're going to get all the paddle points. We're going to see if we can get most of the bike points. And this was part of us trying to plan out our, maybe other teams are much better at this, but this is our development and our growth was, let's just not go out there and get every single point. Let's try and set up some cutoffs. So if we don't make it to this point at this time, then we're going to need to turn back around, or, divert, skip these other points, drop them. We also wanted to try and plan out, okay, if we get to the Boy Scout Camp Powhatan, at this particular time, we think that we will be able to go for this part of the map. And we're going to start here. And then we want to kind of, I guess, section off the map so that we can aim for this part, some, easier points, but also some medium and hard points for the second. And so that was part of the strategy that we used going into the first day. We can talk about kind of our experience dropping points strategically and so on. The second day,
eventually that became part of your reality, right? Eventually you had to say, listen, we're moving at a certain speed, the clock's ticking, we have to make some decisions here.
Yes.
Yeah. We are not Larson and Spangler, so we're gonna have to make sure that we are picking which points to drop. And so we ended up going with the strategy of like, let's just go up and do one smaller loop and then leave, another part of the map for the second day. That's a future us problem, right? And so then the second day, we start on a pretty big bike leg going to going to paddle with our bikes.
Made a choice though on that bike leg at the beginning of the second day.
Yeah. We I think we're the only team, and Mark was like, that was an interesting strategy. So when Mark Lattanzi's like, that was an interesting strategy, that means we didn't really make the right decision, but it's fine,
It's code. It's code for right.
So we ended up, completing the bike and then paddle leg, but then we were left with the trek, the remainder of the trek for the second day, and we had to incorporate both the string course and climbing into that. And we were kind of planning out some of our timing here. And this is where, we're going to have to be flexible on all of our timing as we're planning out, our map and kind of race strategy to make sure that we're leaving enough time, but not dropping points too early in the race. Right. The third day, we're biking out to, a nice O course, medium sized O course, and then biking out to a paddle leg, and then kind of riding what we would consider kind of Champs-Élysées, like back in, it's pretty smooth ride.
The victory lap, just get home.
Yeah. And so I would say the dropping points were really crucial in the first 2 days. The third day, not as much. You kind of were feeling like, okay, we can get almost all the points if we just are making sure that we're keeping a consistent pace. That was kind of our strategy, not necessarily one that we knew like Thursday night, because it started Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, 12 hours each day. But we had planned out a little bit more of that, at least tricky O course strategy for the first and second days as a part of our prep.
I just want to jump in on that first and second day Rogaine. The other wrinkle to it was always the last stage of each day. So it wasn't like we finished day one and we had, for illustrative purposes, we got 10 of 24 and we were going to get up, gun goes off day two on the Rogaine and we go get the next 14. No. Like we had 2 stages prior to that. So it's a little bit of a mental gymnastics. How much time do we think we're going to have at the end of day two to then get whatever we get, and then working our way backwards to the night before the race even started? Well, then how many do we think we want to get on day one? It was a moving target.
And looking back, were you pleased with how you scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you crushed it, and 1 being like you basically dropped the maps in the garbage? How did you feel you did from a navigational perspective?
Yeah, and I'll let David jump in, so I won't add every little bit. But I wanted to note, that this was something where we had both prepared physically. We, got to that point where it's like, okay, we need to do the training. But we knew that we were going to have to just generally work hard across 12 hours, but we worked really hard in this first day. And we pushed probably a little bit harder than we normally would, knowing, like this is going to be a lot of possible points that we could get in the first and second days. And I would say, I was the navigator. I want to talk a little bit about our team development and navigation overall, because I'm the one who has the maps. I'm not the only one who's looking at the maps throughout the race and talking through it. Right. So I will say that overall, the paddle and bike were fairly straightforward, other than one particular bike point that we probably should not have gone for, and then another one that I think we made the right decision not to go for. That I think the O course part of it, I would have given myself like an 8 out of 10, which I think we performed relatively well.
Very good number for an O course,
but
right?
There was a lot of had it been 10 out of 10, maybe we get 2 more points, with less of the, we thought we were close and we weren't quite that close. And 10 is all relative, because my 10 out of 10 is not, other expert navigators 10 out of 10. Right. So that's what I would give myself in that category.
David, Eddie, wanted to toss it over to you there real quick. What do you want to share about that?
No, I was just going to say, I thought Eddie's navigation was really strong. I'm going to make another basketball joke. We like basketball, but we sometimes refer to getting checkpoints like which ones are layups, which ones are threes, which ones are logo threes, like which ones are half court. And, like Eddie, I know you've been training a ton this year in navigation and made some logo threes. Like we were on the second day in particular, we were on the west side, which had like kind of 4 checkpoints, like stuck down in a couple of places. One that was actually, I think, misprinted that Eddie talked with Mark afterwards, and he was like, yeah, that was in the wrong spot.
Yeah. Mark had that one out there. He talked about that
we found it.
Yeah.
Eddie found it. And I think, like while we didn't clear the O course, like we cleared, JB says this a lot, we cleared our version of it. Right. Like when we mapped out what we were going to do, Eddie executed that plan really well. And I think our development as a team in terms of navigators, like, I'm not sure what your experience with this, Brian, is, but like first race, we were like, let's just get to the circle and maybe we'll find it. And you're like, oh, I'm 100 meters from this thing and it's night. And we've slowly shrank that circle. And I think the things that he was doing well is he'd be like, all right, we're going to do these 5 things. It's going to take us this long. And then it should be there. And it would routinely be there. And that just like builds a lot of success.
So there's very systematic, right? Get to here, get to end. Slowly it gets closer. I always, a common strategy that my teams have used is the idea of red, we're nowhere near it. Yellow, we're getting closer. Green, we should be on top of. And that was a verbal signal. So that, okay, guys, we're green, which means everybody's got to like spread out a little bit, start looking around, keep your distance to each other. And, what's the clue? Where are we going? And you get closer there. And the dynamic there too was that, so you had that first day, right? And the first day, you're new maps and you're full of energy and you're feeling fresh and you've been prepped, and you said you went hard that first day. What was the recovery like of night 1? Like, what did you eat and go to bed? Did you have to dry your stuff out? Like, what strategy did you use to set yourself for success on day 2?
JB, you got to talk about this quarter map.
Sure. And then maybe the secret sauce. We had an Airbnb. It was on the lake. There was a hot tub. There was a washer and a dryer. There was cable TV and internet. And those were huge creature comforts for us. I mean, I'll be candid. Like, I'll speak for myself, but I'll speak a little bit for these guys too. Like, we're going to spend a lot of money and time to go do this. We want to hang out a little bit. And that was really helpful. It was nice to know 7 o'clock or 7:30 or whenever the timing was, when that's over, we got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
That's not just a sleeping bag and hanging out socks. And so that meant that, and then, fast forward 10 hours later, alarm goes off at 5:30 and you got everything warm and dry and climate controlled. So that was helpful to us. But it was 3 12-hour races. And what I mean by that is, at least it felt like it to me, it was 3 sprints. It wasn't like, it's going to be tapering off a little bit on day 2. Now, maybe day 3 was a little bit shorter for some teams, but I think Mark and Mike put in a fair amount of elevation to kind of counteract some of that. and I'd say that's maybe an overriding point if I'm just diverging a little bit. They did such a good job to plan out 3 days of racing in one location. They did a great job with this kind of hub and spoke approach that we never really crossed over ourselves much.
Yeah, I've grown to know Mark very well over the years, and his events are known for their thoughtfulness. The maps are excellent. They're very strong. They're clear. And so you're right. And you knew what you were getting when you get mixed up with him and Mike. You knew exactly what you're going to get. It sounds like you prioritized the idea of being together as a team from both a reset perspective as well as a team building perspective. You had the Airbnb, and you were able to be with each other in that setting rather than just getting a campsite sleeping on the ground. That was a priority for you.
And I don't think that we're like, that's never going to happen. But for our first one, like we wanted to set ourselves up to be successful. And I think controlling the things that we could. And as JB said, like having our gear super dialed in and space to spread out and light, like I think just set us up to be successful. Cleaning our clothes, dry shoes and socks. Again, that probably won't exist forever, but it sure did on this one. And I think it helped us. It helped our mentality at the beginning of every day. And I think allowed us to focus on what the race was going to be like.
Hey, we joked. Well, first of all, I'll say it was nice because at the end we could opt in and still catch up with people at the end as they congregated. But then, we knew we had our own spot. But at least one team, maybe more, you guys correct me, or reference that this was the warm up for them for some expedition race. In fact, one in particular, I remember saying like, "Oh, we're getting ready for Endless Mountains," and we looked at each other and said, "This is our Endless Mountains. Like this is enough for us right now."
You mentioned before when you were talking, JB, and I want to kick it out to your 2 other teammates too, the idea that you've had the chance to grow a lot over the course of your adventure racing. Does anybody want to talk about the idea of the personal growth that you've seen as a result of AR?
Yeah, I'm happy to start things off. And I guess I was originally kind of thinking, okay, how have we grown in our adventure racing skills? And I think that is something that I'll give David credit here for really being our team leader and encouraging everybody to grow in their adventure racing skills, specifically in navigation. Like it's not like I got to lead for this race, but I'm not going to lead for every race. We've rotated our responsibilities. And so this is something where every member of our team has been a navigator at one point. And so I feel like, looking at adventure race skills, that's one element of development. I think that it is a great opportunity, and I'll speak to some of, like the personal growth of feeling discomfort and, leaning into that, not just this is physical discomfort, but I still know where I'm going, right? To your point about running marathons everybody can feel that. But I remember feeling in one of the first adventure races, like we're out here. Like I know, my teammates are near me, but like I'm not all that familiar with just being in wilderness, like off trail. And that was just something that was very new to me, first 12-hour race even. It was light outside and I was like, am I going to be okay out here? And luckily I've got 3 other people near me, which is great. So I feel like that has been an element of just comfort there. But also, I hope that other teams are doing it based on what we've heard from, your podcast, Brian, the way that other teams are talking about communication and the best ways to communicate with each other. I think that, we're working towards that, and credit to, other teammates for saying like, let's make these weekly calls happen to catch up. We can still like talk about, each other, but like, let's get in here and overanalyze something. Cause I think that's another one of our like team strengths is like, if we just want to like really look way too deeply into something, whether that's, other sport related or adventure racing like that's something that I think we're all very much into. And so this being a great outlet for overanalysis is what's been a benefit.
Well, clearly there you're identifying the intellectual, thoughtful side of the racing, right? That talking about the race itself, looking at the maps, breaking down your GPS, talking about, a tricky checkpoint here, a shot from the logo that is an airball, right? Like the idea of spending time on that.
Oh yeah. We've had plenty of those. That's a part of team development too. Figuring out where, So I feel like that is something that As a team, we are also just trying to figure out like how we can grow other skills and maybe optimize our communication as well, which is another thing. Like we debriefed after this race, we debrief after other races. It's just great to get a chance to hang out with each other. What would y'all say?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the navigation one in particular is interesting, Brian, because I think like a lot of teams just have a navigator and that person is the one who navigates. And, you know, I think a lot of us are like, that looks interesting. Like I want a shot at that. And so being, all of us kind of being comfortable and trusting enough to be like, yeah, take the maps. I mean, like it's a huge responsibility, but it is the real linchpin of what makes adventure racing special is being out there navigating. And I think each one of us has been like, oh, I'd like a shot at that. I'd like a shot at like the uncertainty and bringing clarity and leading a group through it. So yeah, that's from a skill standpoint, Eddie, I totally agree with you. I think there's maybe two, because you asked about like what kind of personal growth we've had. Mm-hmm. The first thing I'll say is without even looking at a map, I know during a race when I'm geographically at the farthest point from the finish. And there's like a special moment for me. It's like looking into the void a little bit where it's grappling with mental and physical uncertainty and being like, are we going to make it back? Like not literally, we know we're going to make it back, but are we going to make it back in the time that we need to and get the checkpoints that we need to? And that moment is, I think the first race was potentially frightening. The second race was like illuminating. And then from then on, it's just like, I recognize when that moment comes and I'm like, that's what adventure racing is about. There's no other sport that I've participated in that potentially mirror appears. And then the second thing I think I would say, a book that I love is called Mountains Beyond Mountains by Tracy Kidder. And it's based on the life of Paul Farmer. You know him?
I love Paul Farmer. Love that book.
Incredible. The book's unbelievable. And the proverb at the beginning, and again, for people who haven't read it, I definitely recommend reading it. Paul Farmer is a doctor. He works in Haiti and Peru and Russia to basically like fight tuberculosis. So the proverb at the beginning is beyond mountains, there are mountains. And I appreciate that from a bunch of different perspectives. Like from adventure racing, I like the comfort that after this race, there's going to be another one. I like the idea that like we are going to do another race. We're going to learn more. We're going to grow more. Mm-hmm. We're going to have some more friends come and join us. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's something empowering about like, if you finish this mountain, there's another one, then you would better appreciate the mountain that you're currently climbing. And I think that's one of the things about racing too, where it's like the three of us just had this experience, grew some, were frustrated some, solved some stuff, but like every race that we do, I feel like, man, I'm going to remember that. And I hope that while it's happening, and I think most people who race do this, it's like, I don't feel more present in any parts of my life than when I'm out competing in an adventure race with people I'm close to.
I just finished reading Alex Hutchinson, The Explorer's Gene, right? And they touch on that, right? And there, the idea of being out and there's the curve, the Wundt Curve, where there's this magic area in which something is difficult enough that you appreciate doing it, but you're not bored and you're not overtaxed, right? And for many people, adventure racing hits that circle where this is challenging and difficult, but I can do this. It's worthy of my time, right? And that's that special curve that you want to find as you go in there. And you're right about that. And adventure racing very often checks that box for a lot of people personality-wise. And you found that. I love how you mentioned Paul Farmer, Tracy Kidder, Mountains Beyond Mountains, which is not about adventure racing, but there are principles that exist in that book that apply into the sport that we enjoy, which then go from there into our larger life, right? One feeds the other, which feeds the other, you know, and so the idea of growth. And shout out for the first Paul Farmer reference ever on the Dark Zone. Thanks for doing that. I'm proud you did that. JB, what do you think about this?
Let's see. In terms of our evolution as a team or personally, I mean, make me lump together. I think I look back again to continue to dovetail on the navigation piece. I can speak for myself, but I think as I think back to other experiences, the first time I was the lead navigator, there's this great responsibility, right? I feel like I'm kind of like the leader of the pack, but there's also this uncertainty. So there was a lot more of like, okay, guys, huddle up. I think this is where we're going, but let me know what you think, because I want a little bit of the reinforcement. I also don't want to take too many steps in one direction wrong. And I think each of us has had that as a part of this team when we have held the maps initially. Then we got to a stage where someone else has the maps and maybe I've navigated before and I'm saying, whoa, wait a minute. Like, are you sure we need to be going there? Like kind of backseat.
You're saying to yourself, like, how can I gently get across the idea that this is wrong, but I don't want to insult them, but I have to get
guys, I've done this once. Trust me. Like I need to, let's run this by me. But as we get further and further, and this was a perfect example, like both of those things have improved in the directions they need to improve, meaning Eddie has the confidence to go. We have the confidence in Eddie. And then the linchpin between those two is, I think, this nice kind of breadcrumb communication from Eddie to us. To your point earlier about red, yellow, and green, we don't communicate that way, but Eddie's great about saying, hey, look, the next 20 minutes are going to be hard. And that's a nice level set for us. Or we're getting close. Now we can fan out a little bit more. We don't need to be as huddled up because we are in the circle that Dave referenced earlier. And that goes back to talking about, some of the principles of that nice harmony between working hard and thinking, with all apologies to chess boxing, which I've never competed in, and I'm sure is way harder. I do think of that though. There's a lot of effort, and then there's, okay, now you got to fake and put yourself in the map or extract. And then there's a lot of effort again, and we're choosing our direction at each time. So
I just love the fact that you just referenced chess boxing, which by the way, my children, my adult children introduced me to, where, I'm going to chess boxing. I did never chess box, but they've told me all about it, is that it's basically you box for a round, then they they stop. The chessboard descends from the ceiling. The boxers play chess, then it goes back up and then they box again. I don't want to over explain that to our guests, but am I right about that? That is chess boxing. Am I correct?
That's my understanding. And again, apology. I think that's probably harder than anything I've ever done, but the marriage of a lot of effort and a lot of thinking is something we can relate to.
Full former in chess boxing. The podcast took a turn on this one. And so clearly and you come across as three very thoughtful teammates and thoughtful people, that you have a sense of the growth that's come from this, right? And what you do out there. Drilling into the more narrow dynamic of the team during the race itself. You mentioned the navigation that you it feels kind of democratic, but you can't really navigate by committee, but everybody could always kind of speak up. And I get that completely exists. Do you discuss specific roles prior to the race? Like your job is to keep an eye on, like, make sure we're all eating and drinking. You're going to carry more stuff. You're on navigation. You're the mule. Like, are you that specific in your planning, or because you know each other well, you just kind of move as a unit without really detailing that?
Oh, we're that specific and then some. So yeah, we're talking about, okay, well, we want, maybe a primary navigator, but each of us had the maps at different times during the race. So it's not like it was living with me. I mean, I think, there were opportunities for each of us to be primary navigator at different points. And we even knew that coming in. We said, okay, well, for this day, we're going to plan that, but let's see how it goes. It might be that it makes sense for, somebody to take the maps for more of day 2, even though JB is going to start with them. We'll then have to see kind of how things look after the paddle. That ended up happening for day 2. And I mean, David is the best, bike navigator of all of us. And so it's like, well, it makes a whole lot of sense for him to have, the maps for larger portions of that. And so that was something where, we had talked about splitting it up by day. And then we ended up having it be, okay, well, let's see how this feels. I think it might make sense for me to have the maps more during the trekking parts of each day, but still be able to split it during, split the responsibilities during other times. I mean, we have plenty of other roles. I mean, you all have already talked about, rabbit roll. Everybody knows about that role on our team. I think we have a kind of a unique role on our team, the team captain, though, and David, created this role. So I'd like for him to talk a little bit more about it, because it's got a cool kind of element that I think we all recognized was really needed in some of our early racing.
David?
Yeah. Yeah. For us, I just think the navigator can sometimes lose sight of the big picture because your job is to go and secure a control. And we found that over the course of our racing, if the navigator was also the person being like, hey, we got to be back in 8 hours. Are we going to make it? They were not able to do that. And so we've, I think, like, and it sounds like maybe other teams have done that. But that role of like keeping track of the macro time, being like, hey, we got to be done with this. Even if the navigator says back like, no, we got to stay. Like, I'm going to go get this one. Like, I'm going to need 15 more minutes, but then we're going to be good. So yeah, I think team captain, important role on our team, checkpoint rabbit, navigator. We tend to shy away from the mule role just because I don't think any of us ever want to be the mule. It's the least desirable role. It's not the role that any of us got into racing to do. So yeah. And then other team roles besides that, yeah, there's like someone usually is also keeping track of nutrition and hydration and prompting that stuff. Usually is, I mean, as Eddie said, like we often refer to it as like a shoulder navigator, someone who's like, hey, I'm going to pace count. Like, what do you need on this? Or like, hey, I'm counting features. Tell me what I'm looking for and I'll call them out so that the navigator can be really focused on their job.
Yeah, you touched on a really important piece of advice that I want to amplify for the newer racers is don't mix up your team captain and your team navigators being the same person. It's just not going to work out well. That person, not that we could drag an fMRI machine out into the woods, but I guarantee you that if somebody attempted to do both of those tests, their brain would just be going haywire. You can't do it. And the other part of it too is that navigators fall into a trap of, and you saw this thing in World War II, where a fighter pilot was shooting for a target on the ground. He would keep shooting to the very, very end. If he actually smashed into the target, he would lose context of what he had to do. Very often, navigators get so focused on the goal that they lose sense of time and distance, and they have to get back. And they need someone there to remind them, like, no, like we have to stop going in this direction. We have to go back because the clock's ticking. It's getting dark and all of that, right? So I think that's a really good thing to bring out there. JB, anything about roles?
No, I think the way that we've described it is who we are.
Eddie,
I mean, I guess I was reminded of the fact that this team captain role played an important part in our planning. When we get all those maps, because the team captain is then David in our case is planning out, okay, I think our pace is going to be right around here. We should be at this point around this time, but that impacts, for our, given the connectedness of some of the days, that impacts how much we think that we might be able to get on certain legs. And so I think that was just a great way. I mean, it could have happened with, had all the legs been put together and it was a 36-hour race. We still would have had kind of a similar issue, except the checkpoint density in the wrecking portion and really that Big O course across the first and second day, we weren't exactly sure based on the elevation chain how much we should prioritize those points relative to the distance. And what I will comment on is the trail quality that we did not know going in to what we, everything's different, when you see it on the map versus in real life. And so that was something that added an element of, David's planning, macro planning for our whole race.
I was going to pick up on that too. Anecdotally, again, we're in the same sort of region and we're not duplicating too much, but we know where we are. And it rained overnight between day 2 and day 3. And we had been on some of those trails that we were going to see in day 3. So when we thought about from a macro perspective, what our timings were going to look like for the legs on day 3, we put in some buffer thinking, man, maybe this stuff is pretty washed out. And then you combine that with bikes and elevation, and maybe we're not on our bike seats as much as we were initially forecasting. As it turned out, everything drained really well, and we were able to under promise and over deliver to ourselves. But it was a key part that was unique to this race for us, that we could start to get a little bit more familiar with what those estimates were between day 1 and day 2 and day 2 and day 3. Because to Eddie's point, by then we had seen the elevation and we had seen the trails. And so we could know what to expect for better, for worse.
Clearly, 1 Degree Racing has been on a trajectory of growth, right? You have 2-3 years experience on average between the three of you. You have a cohort, you have a stable of people out there that race alongside you. Clearly the team dynamic is strong. There's all of these dynamics that are kind of coming together for your success. Have you kicked around the idea of like, what's next? Right. And I share that question because very rarely is the event racer that says, you know something, I'm good. It's always the next thing. So what conversations have you had? What aspirations do you have as a group or personally about where do you want to take this?
I mean, I'll start. So when we first started racing, we nailed down 3 goals that we approach every race with. Goal 1 is that we all walk away having had a positive experience. Goal 2 is that we push ourselves to our individual and collective limits. Sometimes it's meet and exceed. And then goal 3 is some sort of finishing goal. Like on our first race ever, we were like, we just want to be official finishers. We don't want to get a DNF or an incomplete. We want to be official finishers. Right. And then as time has gone on, we push and pull that 3rd goal and keep that 3rd goal in tension with the first goal of walking away with a positive experience. And so there are times where, a group of us is like, hey, we want to go for it. Like we want to be on the podium for this. And I think what I would say is like, we obviously have those conversations and are comfortable with like a variety of different futures. I think like I probably in the next couple of years would love to try a race that's not in the United States. And that would be like a huge hurdle for me as a person, for me as a racer. We like nationals as an event that we're planning to go to as long as we qualify or get invited as a good way to see how we measure up with teams. And I mean, I think Eddie made the joke earlier, like we are not peers of the best teams out there, have a ton of respect for them, but are not on the same level as athletes, as racers. And so I think are comfortable with like who our peers are and how we measure up against them. So I think we look at that as a positive measuring stick. And I do think a big thing though is like, as we continue to age, like be able to spend quality time together and be healthy and set good examples for our children. And so I think those are things I would articulate as my future goals and aspirations is having a big enough umbrella and a big enough tent that each of those things is possible, that we can be like, let's go do a race in Croatia. Let's experience it. Let's get after nationals and see if we can make a top 10 this year. I think all those things are possible. Or like, let's go do the FIG again and just enjoy being together. Like, let's just go be in the mountains and see some cool stuff.
And the idea that racers race, right? 12 hours, 6 hours, 24 hours, 30 hours, how race will travel, right? To your point. By the time this episode comes out, there will be a Checkpoint podcast, which is USARA's Checkpoint, hosted by Brent Friedland, specifically about introducing yourself to international racing. That's the whole topic of the podcast, is for the racer that wants to consider what that's like the logistics, who do you pick and where do you go and all that stuff. So I'm recording this for the future. So if you hear this, go back and listen to a Checkpoint, which doesn't yet exist, but that's the time vortex of podcast recording. Eddie, what do you think in terms of aspirational goals?
That's largely aligned with what I would hope to do. I mean, I think this was our first expedition-ish race, and I think it would be nice to do an expedition race in the future. I mean, it may be a different members of our team, but I think that would be nice to get there. I mean, I was happy, getting to the point of, will our kids be a part of, our future racing? I think it would be nice to have kids that are kind of entering that middle school age, just to, I mean, you were interested in interviewing high school team and their teacher, and it's just like great to hear that next generation of racers. And I will say my response so far has been, I did one race. I don't think I'm going to do another one of these from our child. And I remember some of our race teammates, our teammates, saying the same thing. And so I'm thinking, we're going to be able to, convert this younger generation to say like, oh yeah, we're going to be into this. And so hopefully, that's a part of our future. But for all of us, I think the expedition racing would be great.
Gotcha. JB, what do you think?
I want to echo a lot of that. As we refer to the stable folks and other friends whom haven't yet caught up with us, but who we think are probably likely candidates. I even mentioned this on our postmortem call among the three of us after Cerberus. Like, I think I'd like to establish, if it can fit in Dave's tent, maybe we have a 1 degree racing, but we also have sort of 1 degree weekending where there's a group of us and we get together. It's a 12-hour, it's daylight, it's a little more manageable, and we pick our spots. Meaning, this happened a handful of times, and I was recalling it a few weeks ago, that we get to go to these great pieces of land, and sometimes we get to the high point and we bag the flag and we're moving on, and that's it. And then you see somebody up there who's just like on a day hike and they're sitting and having a snack. It's like, that was pretty nice. And so I like the idea of maybe getting a map and just looking at it for the hour, and instead of trying to think how many, just think which ones do we think are interesting. Still put in the work, have some effort, but maybe we're done, an hour or two earlier than another team, and that's okay. That's not necessarily the way it would always be, but I'm interested in approaching a handful of races like that as well, and still getting the experience that
a very common trajectory you see in adventure racing is that you race for a whole bunch of years, you do a lot of different races, and you build a unique, a very particular set of skills that you can then roll into other experiences. Like, I know a lot of adventure races that just plain old fashioned go on adventure, right? Whether it be the Adirondacks in New York State, or they'll fly to another country. And so you have this skill set now. And on top of that too, and this is the other part of the spillover effect of adventure racing in your life is because you do these challenging and difficult things, you're more inclined to go do other challenging and difficult things. So the idea of going to a foreign country, the idea of getting lost somewhere, the idea of just seeing what's out there gets kind of ingrained into our day-to-day behavior because it's in our leisure type behavior, right? It seeps over, it jumps into our personality. And I think that's one of the best side effects of adventure racing is how adventure racers are just like, let's go figure it out. I'm getting a one-way ticket to Vietnam, and I got a backpack and I got a passport, and we're just going to go, and it's going to be great. And they have this fantastic adventure, and then they come home. That is a real life application of what we do during the races that comes across there. Dave, you want to say something?
I was just going to say that resonates so much because I do think all of us have grown in that skill of being able to tolerate uncertainty, going and doing things that are beyond our limits. And I do think I said it. But like, if I had a chance to race with my sons, with Will and Des and Julian, and let them share this, and then have them learn some of those skills that they can take to other parts of their life, that seems really, really special, and something that like we would then get to share. And then, I will just say one race in particular, because Eddie didn't say what he was thinking about it. Eddie would like, and I think our team would like to try America's Toughest Race and go out to Oregon and sometime soon. I think that is on our list, and Eddie's got some family out there that we would love to go and see. So
totally endorse that race. The Magnuses, they put on that whole stable of racers out there in the Pacific Northwest, put amazing races on. So you're right about that. That would be a great experience to go and do. And I think when it comes to, I worked in education for a long time, right? And there's two ways of working with kids. It's caught and it's taught. And the taught is it's explicit, right? We're going to go do this thing. We're going to come along here. But it's kind of caught. They model the adults that they see in their lives, right? And so when their parents, their mothers and their fathers are going out doing these things, it's like being irradiated, right? They live inside that environment without realizing it becomes part of who they are, and it becomes very natural. And so I always say that to parents a whole lot, the idea like that you bring them along, but also you set the example, and that gets them into the slipstream of that. And I think with your own kids, I think that's a great way of looking at it. And so I think that's a really nice way to show appreciation for what adventure racing has given you. The idea that you want to pass it on to your children, which is great.
And they've got to earn their 1 degree racing apparel too, that they've already gotten. So, we give them these cool, like hoodies and everything. So that
you don't just get the race shirt, you earn the race shirt.
That's right.
Only one child so far. Only one. Who, Eddie?
Victoria, she went out there and we raced together. So we're representing, and that is our first co-ed race as 1 degree racing. So a mixed race, I should say. Sorry.
So we're getting to the end of our time. You just bumped up against an hour. Is there anything that I didn't ask? Anything that I didn't bring to light that you wish I had asked about, or something that you want to talk about yourself? The floor is yours. Please feel free to share whatever you want to say out to the world.
I do want to shout out, I was thinking about some of the more, slightly unique things, different things that our team does. And one thing that I have, been introduced to as, one of the newer members of our team is the mind, body, spirit check-ins that we do throughout our race. It's nothing like it's every hour, but throughout our each day in Cerberus, we were doing mind, body, spirit, where it's 0, 1 to 5. And you're kind of giving how you're feeling mentally, how your body is feeling, and then also just like your spirit, what is your drive looking like right now. And it's a good time to air grievances if you need to, or make sure that other people know how good you're feeling, so that you can carry a little bit more weight, or know, okay, we can keep pushing here.
So you have an explicit system built into place to bring to light things that people would be expected to initiate on their own. Like, you open the door for the conversation through that, as opposed to making the leap independent.
Pass it around too. So one person initiates it, that person passes it on to the next teammate, and then you pass it throughout the group. And so that's part of the thing where it's like we're all going to take our turn reporting out how we're feeling.
And the idea being that will help the team dynamic, and also it will take away any future tension points when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired out there, and you're rather than eat each other alive, you get it out there on your own. Okay.
Yeah, you get the Nathan Fielder rehearsal. The rehearsal where he wants everybody to be open in their communication, and this is something that David does for work. Working and people at KIP. Shout out to his work and his strengths and what he's bringing to our team. It's just making sure that people work well together. And so I think that's something that is one thing that it helps our team communication.
The common expression is whether or not you're saying something. Body language, behavior, or the way you carry yourself. And one thing you definitely see, and it's, I have the chance to race, but also spend a lot of time at races. It's great being a student of human nature. And you watch teams come into TA sometimes, and you could tell within 15 seconds how it's going. You can just tell. And that's the thing where, and so the lesson you're saying out there is that for the newer racer, they have to be really thoughtful about their communication with each other and getting any minefields out of the way that could bubble up later on.
And I would say our friend and teammate James, who was not at this race, but raced with Eddie and I at Adrenaline Rush earlier this year, one of the nuanced communication things that I think he's taught us that for newer teams out there that might benefit you is he had said, hey, please don't tell me I should be eating. Don't tell me I should be drinking. Give me a heads up when you're eating. Give me a heads up when you're drinking. Say, I'm eating. And that's a good passive reminder without being and that's a great lesson for any team to know, the mind, body, spirit check-in is better than saying, are you okay? That's a tough question. A person's on the defensive and they've been working for 10 hours. But instead, something that is more, I'm checking in on each of you in the same way. I think that hopefully the idea is that it allows us to share without being pressured. And yeah, we've definitely learned how to communicate with each other as well.
I've also seen team members knowing that someone was in distress but having a tough time verbalizing it, that they will act like they're having a hard time. I got to stop. I got to get a drink here. Can we take a break? Can we take a 5 here, guys? Because the hurting teammate is not going to ask for it, but the teammate who doesn't need it has created the invitation for the person to engage in it without having a sense of losing face.
Eddie does that. He doesn't get tired, but is very good about being guys, I'm tired. We got to slow down. Eddie's motor is never ending, but he's very good about being I need to stop and take a break, guys. We're thank goodness, because we could use it.
You're killing us up here. One thing you mentioned America's toughest race, and one protocol that when they won Endless Mountains 2 years ago, Ben Racing, we did an interview with them right after the race. They talked a lot about how they had dialed in, listen, every X amount of time we're doing a foot care check. We're going to take the pressure off anybody to speak up, and it said everyone's going to stop here and we're going to check our feet. And that lowered the heat on somebody else, because when there's a dynamic in the race where one teammate's really, really struggling, they fall apart. Also too, for newer racers, when you're trekking and someone's having a really, really hard time, don't leave the fourth person or the third person behind. Put that person in the second seat, right? Have them be followed by somebody. They will move better. That corrupts team dynamic when somebody is over the hill and they've lost track of their teammates. They just grind to a halt. Is there anything any last thing here?
Yeah, I do just want to say thank you. One, thank you for having us, but also just thank you for what you're doing. I know that you've had top teams out there who are going and competing at the AR World Championships. You've had us on. When I think we started, there was not a lot out there to be here's how you learn. You just have to step into the void and just what you're doing here, and all the guests that you have on, as Eddie said, like kids in high school who are learning, race directors. I think what you're doing to help grow the sport that matters, but also make it accessible for wherever someone is entering this, I just think is so positive. And we obviously like listen to your show and send it around when we hear cool stuff, and appreciate everything that you're doing to make this special for more folks.
Thank you for the kind words. On that note, let's call it a day, because I'm finishing on a high note. So thanks for being on the show, everybody. 1 Degree Racing, keep an eye out there. They will be somewhere overseas not too long from now. Thanks, everybody. Holy cow. How great was 1 Degree Racing? Thanks, guys, for coming onto the show. Fantastic advice. So much to resonate with the newer racer. Love their honesty and their enjoyment, their enthusiasm, and we cannot wait to see them out there again. Thanks, everybody. Keep listening.